The summer transfer window is finally closed. There was a lot of last-minute surprises and changes, and I think ultimately it probably benefited us more than it hurt us. So before I even get started and before I even talk about the players that left and the players that we brought in, let me know right now in the comment section down below what you guys thought about Arsenal's transfer window. Did we do a good job? Did we underperform? Are you happy with it? Are you upset? Should we have brought in somebody else? Let me know all of that, all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. So let's start with the players who left. So Eddie Nketiah, $30 million to Crystal Palace. I think Eddie Nketiah, great player, wasn't going to get the playing time that he deserved at Arsenal. He did some pretty good things for us while he was here, but I don't think ultimately he was the player that was going to help us win the Premier League as our starting number 9. So fair play to Eddie. Appreciate everything that he did, but he's off to Crystal Palace, and we got $30 million off the deal, which is great business. Aaron Ramsdale, $25 million. He joined Southampton. I'm going to get to this topic in another video, but I do think the whole Aaron Ramsdale, David Raya situation and the saga that happened, the confusion that Arteta left the fans in and probably even left Ramsdale in when he brought in David Raya, that saga is finally over. I do think it's the one thing that Arteta has not handled well in his career at Arsenal, but that's for a whole different story. So he joined Southampton. Sounds like he's really happy, or seems like he's really happy to be there. Some funny comical transfer videos that he did to announce his signing at Southampton. So good for Aaron Ramsdale, which allowed us to bring in Neto from Bournemouth as our number 2. Reece Nelson, last minute changes and surprises. This is where it starts. He was supposed to go to Ipswich. That deal broke down, and then he now joins Fulham on loan, so we will get him back at the end of the season. But as soon as I saw the Ipswich move collapse, and we were already figuring out the Raheem Sterling situation, I thought that might lead to a collapse in the Raheem Sterling situation. Fortunately, as soon as that deal collapsed, he was already off to Fulham. Paperwork was sorted within literally 5 minutes, and he was good to go. Fabio Vieira, also on loan to FC Porto. Good player. I don't think he was ready. I don't think he's at the level where we need him to be. So hopefully when he comes back on loan, both him and Reece Nelson, they come back much better players. So those are the outgoing players. So we didn't lose anybody major. I think we kept all of our starters, all of the players who are really going to make an impact for us this season. Who did we bring in? So the very first one that we brought in was Mikel Merino. Mikel Merino, I already made a video on him. If you guys want to watch that, I'll link it up somewhere around here so you guys can go ahead and check that one out. Solid central midfielder, number 8. That's not what he's going to be wearing on his jersey, I don't think, but that's his position. Unfortunate news that just came out yesterday. Mikel Merino suffered a shoulder injury in training. Arteta announced in a press conference that it looks like there might be a small fracture, so he's out for a few weeks. How many weeks? Not really sure, but he's probably going to miss all of September. Hopefully we get him back in early October. I don't think he was going to be a starter right away anyway. I think he was going to try and ease him in. And I still wasn't really sure on how Arteta was going to balance that whole situation with the midfielders that we currently have. So obviously unfortunate for any player to get injured, but it's not like we spent $100, $200 million on a player and then all of a sudden he's injured. The next one was Neto from Bournemouth. I honestly, this one really pissed me off. I had the video ready for Joan Garcia. Joan Garcia was going to join us from Espanyol. He was going to be our number 2. It seemed like everything was good to go. They were basically just waiting for the Aaron Ramsdale deal to go through with Southampton. As soon as the deal went through and then they started negotiating with Espanyol, Espanyol could not let him go because they wanted a release clause, and it basically got complicated. Ultimately, they shut it down. Joan Garcia was no longer a viable option for us, so we had Neto, who is the starting goalkeeper at Bournemouth. I watched a couple of highlights. I do think he's going to be our number 2. Interesting move for him because he is playing as a starter at Bournemouth in the Premier League, playing all the minutes for Bournemouth, and he's going to make the transition over to Arsenal, which is obviously a better team. He's going to have a chance to win a Premier League, Champions League. However, he's probably not going to play. He's just going to be the backup for David Raya. The reason why it's a good signing, if you're an Arsenal supporter, is because it finally eliminates the saga that was going on between David Raya and Aaron Ramsdale. We now know who's our clear number 1, who's our clear number 2, and I think both of the goalkeepers are going to be on the same page with that. So pretty solid signing. I'm okay with that. Again, nothing crazy. The big one, I think, the big one for us this transfer window, Raheem Sterling. I didn't even think about it, honestly, until this morning, because when we started talking about Reiss Nelson going on loan, Fabio Vieira was already going on loan, and Sterling was a possibility. Once they offered him to Arsenal, I started thinking about the links. Mikel Arteta has a good relationship with Raheem Sterling because he was the assistant under Pep Guardiola when Raheem Sterling was at Manchester City. So it makes sense that Arteta would want to bring him. Obviously, he was out of the project at Chelsea. Enzo Maresca said he is no longer in his plans. And I appreciate that Raheem Sterling said that he was willing to take a pay cut to go somewhere else so that he could get minutes and so he could play. He could have done what Ben Chilwell is doing, basically, is very little news on the transfer window about him. And so he's probably just going to show up to the U15 training, collect a big paycheck, and then go home after that because he's obviously not part of the plan. So that's a whole different situation on its own. However, Raheem Sterling to Arsenal, deal is finalized. Here we go, confirmed by Fabrizio Romano. Is this our best signing? I'm going to compare this to Federico Chiesa at Liverpool. It's a signing that kind of just came out of nowhere. It wasn't like one of our main targets. It just happened to be an option that we ended up taking a chance on. We are getting him on loan, so that's different from Federico Chiesa. But the reason why I think it's similar is because I don't think he's going to come in to start. Arteta's not going to bring him in to be somebody that's going to replace Bukayo Saka. But I do think with Reiss Nelson and Fabio Vieira leaving, it leaves us with, once again, nobody on the bench except Leandro Trossard, who plays as a winger. And it's a good signing because Martinelli also hasn't been playing very well recently. So that spot on the left wing, I think, is up for grabs between Martinelli, Raheem Sterling, and Leandro Trossard. And I think Saka is going to keep his position. I think Arteta is going to find a way between those three to put the best player on the left wing or maybe make some changes. I don't know, switch up the formation. However, I think Raheem Sterling comes in at a really good time when we let some of those players go out on loan. And so I think it's a great transfer. I think we're not paying a hefty fee, a hefty transfer fee. We're not taking a big risk because he is coming on loan with no obligation to buy, which means at the end of the year, he just goes back to Chelsea, especially if he underperforms. The reason I'm a little bit worried about it is because he hasn't had his best moments recently at Chelsea. I think his best moments was when he was at Manchester City. So I think there's a little bit of doubt on what level he's at and what form he can find. I think Arsenal's a fantastic team to come into if you're not really sure where you stand, especially at your former club, because Arsenal has a very good set system, a process, and I think Arteta does a really good job of incorporating all of those players to get them to maximize their potential. I feel like there's very few players at Arsenal that don't perform well or are confused by the system or just completely look like they just don't belong. So I really hope Raheem Sterling does a good job. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to lie to you guys here. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys and tell you that he's the best signing and that, we're so lucky to have him. I think he's a solid signing. I don't think he makes us the best team in the Premier League. I think he just helps us kind of get there with all of the current players that we have on our current squad. So, could this transfer window have been a little bit better? Absolutely. I think the one position, and everybody knows this already, the one position that we should have really focused on is a center forward. I'm surprised that we didn't chase Ivan Toney. I'm surprised that we didn't chase Alexander Isak, considering both of those guys had proposals from a few other clubs. Ivan Toney, clearly, not that he wanted to leave, but he was open to making a move, and he's now going to Saudi Arabia, which I understand we can't compete with the wages. However, I think a little bit more interest, and maybe we could have gotten somebody like him. Had we gotten Ivan Toney, I would have been really happy about this transfer window, because now, unfortunately, we settled with Mikel Merino, who has got an injury and is out for a few weeks, and Raheem Sterling, we're not sure exactly where he's gonna be. But could this transfer window have been worse? Absolutely. There's multiple teams in the Premier League that I think missed big chances for one reason or another, and Arsenal did a pretty good job overall, probably one of the top teams in the Premier League as far as the summer transfer window goes. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Let me know what you think about our new players, what you think about the outgoing players. And hopefully this is the start of a Premier League winning season. Let me know in the comment section down below.